Hey everyone, Luke here. Now, before we get into talk about the Doctor Stone chapter, just want to say rest in peace to the author of Berserk, who we all found out this week had passed away at the beginning of this month, but they only just announced it this week, or I guess last week now, because we're in a new week. Now, me personally, I only read the first chapter of Berserk, and I did try to get into more of it, but to me, it just wasn't my cup of tea. But I can understand why people enjoyed it. I can see the influence and the impact it had on a lot of people, and I know how it must have been to lose someone as talented as him, because the artwork was amazing. Like, that's the praise I will give Berserk as well. The artwork, absolutely phenomenal in Berserk. So much detail went into it, and I can honestly understand why people actually felt the way they did when he died. So condolences to him and his family. I cannot pronounce his name for the life of me, so I apologize if I am unable to pronounce his name. But yeah, moment of silence for him. So yeah, rest in peace, author of Berserk. You deserve it for all the influence you've had on not just anime and manga, but all medium, through movies, comics, video games. You deserve it. But for now, let's talk about what is quite possibly the most divisive chapter of Doctor Stone ever. Now, the reason why I call it the most divisive chapter of Doctor Stone is because the ending of this chapter is going to split the fandom one way or the other. We've already been talking about it on the Control Chaos Discord server, because I knew as soon as I saw this chapter, I was like, oh my god, David and the guys are probably gonna rant like crazy on this front, and we were all trying to convince them actually this does actually make sense. I'll probably go into some of the conversations that we had regarding this chapter, but yeah. When their video comes out, that is going to be a debate for the ages on their part, whether Red, Furman, or David, whoever thinks this is okay, and whoever hates it. Me personally, I'm fine with it, because unlike a certain other series whose poster that I'm looking at right now, the way the deaths were handled is that they were legitimate deaths in this. They were legitimate deaths, and the characters were technically dead for 10 chapters at max, and 7 years on top of that. So it wasn't just like oh, we're gonna have a major cliffhanger of a character dying. Next chapter, oh, they're all right. So yeah, at least the deaths in Doctor Stone had meaning. Now, does that make it better? No, absolutely not. I can understand why people would be frustrated about this, but we'll go into more details when we get into the chapter. So let's talk about chapter 197, nearing the 200 mark, titled "A Stone Eden and Its Forbidden Fruits." Now, this is obviously a reference to the beginning of this is obviously a reference to the story of Adam and Eve, and a reference to the beginning of the series when literally in chapter 1 Senku said to Taiju, we're going to be the Adam and Eve of this world. Now, that may have seemed fine and dandy at first, but with this chapter it's going to cause some major issues. But anyway, we start off the chapter with Senku being one of the people that is not a very huggy person, and he lets Suika hug him, and he's like, oh, okay, can you get off me now, Suika? I think you've hugged me enough. But she's like, a little more, Senku. Yeah, come on, Senku, she deserves it after nearly 4 or 5 years, however long Suika was on her own at this point, because people are still not getting it. So we're just going to say however long she was on her own, and this chapter doesn't help it as much. But I just want to talk about Suika's decide from the back as well, because we actually do see, because the thing that I pointed out is that Suika had something like, Suika had something on her left shoulder. from the last chapter. We were wondering what it was, but now we can actually see it. It's actually a shield, a little tiny shield that she crafted herself, probably out of wood that they had left over, and she embedded it with the symbol of the kingdom of silence. So that's pretty neat that she actually got a Kohaku style shield. But also she has like a Senku pouch, like pouch belt on her left hip, right down here on her left hip. So it's kind of like she's got the best of the power team and the science team. Anyway, starting off the chapter proper, we see Suika saying how it took her many years to put it up and she failed over and over again. As we see 3 little panels montaging her throughout the years doing just this task of the fire fluid, which in my opinion interprets that she was on her own for 3 years. So she broke out after 4 years, and she was on her own for 3 years, which would make a little bit of sense. But then that would put her at the age of like what, 14, like she's 14 years old in this chapter. Now, one thing that I have noticed about this chapter before people point it out is that Suika, since she's grown up, has lost her ability to speak in the third person, which really, Boichi and Inagaki, taking away all the qualities that made Suika. Oh, come on, let her have the speaking in the third person, please. But fine, I guess. If Suika's gonna grow up, she has to lose a lot. She has to lose all her abilities that she had as a kid to get new abilities. But still, that's kind of like a little bit of like an. I really wish she had kept that, but it's not gonna affect my enjoyment of the series and my enjoyment of Suika being my favourite character, because I would admit she does have quite a few like sassy moments coming up here, where she takes Senku to her nitric acid field, and he's like, a field for making nitric acid from poop. The method that takes a lot of time, but as long as you go slowly and steady, step by step, you're 10 million % guaranteed to get the refined food. You did great, Suika. You did good, Suika. And to hear that from Senku himself, to hear that she was useful, she did good. I think that means more to Suika than Senku giving her a hug at this point. As we see her blushing a little bit, going, "Shucks, Senku, you're embarrassing me." And we see her doing like that, you know, when characters do that. Well, it's not like I did it for that sort of like face that they do. She does that as well. So yeah, being on your own for a few years, so we could kind of getting a bit of the grown up vibes, grown up quirky attitudes now. As she goes, but I only made enough for one person, and I used that dose on you, Senku. But he assures her that she made the right choice, and she got her priorities straight, which makes sense. You have to revive Senku, because once you revive Senku, then all thing is smooth sailing and getting everyone back, because he's the guy who's mastered this revive fluid to perfection, so he can whip it up in no time, as he does in this chapter, as we see him going, "Time for my first scientific crafting in 7 years." As we see him cooking, some nitric acid, then obviously improving on what he was capable of in terms of the glass making at the beginning of the series. Because if you remember at the beginning of the series, he was absolutely useless at making glass items. But in this chapter, he's able to create like a small vessel, not a oh crap, he actually makes more than a small vessel. He actually makes a few vessels. Okay, so he's improved dramatically over the years. So he creates those vessels, and he creates the method to actually use the platinum to create verified food, and he does that all in 1 day, which absolutely shocks Suika. She's like, "In 1 day?" Getting the nitric acid perfected, and Suika obviously Suika has a look here that is obviously reminiscent of how Ginru and Luna react in this. Before she goes on to say, "That took me years. You're just so awesome, Senku." And he's like, "Hey, it's just a different method. As long as we've got platinum, it's a piece of cake." Now all they need is alcohol, which we see them again. a few little callbacks to this to the beginning of the to earlier points in the series, as we see them in a tub, squashing down on grapes to create the alcohol in a similar way to what Kohaku and Ruru were doing earlier on in the series. But it's stated that they're going to need alcohol, and that's going to take half a month to ferment. So in the meantime, they'll just keep making nitric acid, and they do that for half a month. So 16 days later, they have 16 full doses, basically for all their allies. Although there are two that are kind of snuffed in this chapter. And now we get to the emotional moment of the chapter, where the first person, quite literally the first person, because the bottle that they use is the first one, to revive on Suika's part, which is probably Suika saying, please can I revive this person first, please, Senku. And he was like, yeah, go on, you can revive her first. Obviously referring to Kohaku, because Kohaku and Suika have that sisterly relationship, or cousin relationship if they are actually cousins, but more so a sisterly relationship, as we see Kohaku being revived first, which was probably something that a lot of people were debating: is she gonna die or is she not? And some people were saying like, nah, she's not gonna die because she's the fan service character. But anyway, as Kohaku is revived, she looks on in shock and awe. She sees Suika all grown up, and and it's kind of a little bit hard for her to process, like, is this really Suika in front of me right now? But Suika goes on to say, Kohaku, we're around the same age now. So that kind of puts, when she says around the same age, I interpret this as being like, she's Kohaku's age at the beginning of the series, which was 16. So I guess this is pretty much confirming that that Suika is 16 at this point. In age, so she was on her own for 5 years, and she broke out after 2 years. So that would make a whole lot of sense. And she's chronologically at this point, I would say 1920. So yeah, that makes sense. So we'll just go on the limb here that's saying Suika is 16 years old right now. But anyway, she says, I guess I can't exactly ask for a classic Kohaku hug anymore. But of course, Kohaku being Kohaku, she doesn't care about any of this. She doesn't care how old you are. She doesn't care what's been going on. If you want a hug from Kohaku, she will give you a hug. And yeah, that is a pretty emotional moment, because it's like, I'm kind of like that. I need a hug every once in a while from my family. Even though I'm 30 years old, I still go and ask for hugs. And my family don't care. They just do it because they know, like, that's my thing. They know that's what I like. It's what keeps me comfortable. It's what keeps me safe, knowing that I'm surrounded by family who will protect me. It's kind of like my comfort blanket. In the same way, I feel like it's kind of Suika's comfort blanket to receive a hug from Kohaku, but also probably in her mind to say, if I get a hug off Kohaku, that means I've done an amazing job, I've saved everyone, and she can be proud of me. And of course, Kohaku being Kohaku does just that. And like I said, I can honestly see if Suika was gonna learn at some point to actually defend herself, or to actually fights, not on the same level as Kohaku or any of the other stronger members of the power team, but at least be helpful in a fight. I could see Senku making a replica of Kohaku's knives, or Kohaku just giving Suika her old knives and actually training her up to actually at least defend herself a little bit, because she's got that. Suika's got that shield. She might as well use it at this point and actually have a weapon as well that can actually be the attack, while the shield is the defense. But we see Senku there being the wingman, just being like, okay, I guess I've got to go through this before we can actually move on. Now, I was going to comment on this part, right, this little bit right here, and saying that was Kaku's blood, but actually I don't think it is. Like, I just think it's just moss, grass moss that is just developing around them. But anyway, we see the next two people to revive are Ryusui and Francois. So and Francois, Francos, however you want to pronounce however you want to pronounce their name. But that makes sense because Francos was the one of the people that Suika wanted to revive, so that she could cook awesome meals for them. So we got the three people that Suika requested first above all else to be revived, and also Ryusui, which makes sense because Ryusui is kind of like the secondary leader at this point behind Senku. He's taken on leadership positions before. He's the captain of the Perseus, which, by the way, they've got to go and look at that boat at some point. But anyway, they go on to say 60 doses of revival fluid, exactly the number needed to restore us and our allies. Ha ha ha, dealing with the enemy is a topic for another day. I wonder what's going to happen in the next chapter with that comment from Ryusui. But anyway, that's for later. We're discussing this chapter because of what's been going on here. But he goes on to say, for now, let's keep this revival party going. As we see, the next two people to revive are Chelsea, Luna, who spots Suika, and I can only imagine what people's minds are going through right now, because that's the one thing I'll say about this chapter, is that we don't get any comments from people on Suika like actually growing up. They're not like more surprised by this. But anyway, the next few people to revive are Taiju, Ukyo, Gen, Max and Carlos for some reason. Mind you, they were allies in the last arc. A bit forcefully because Luna joined the Kingdom of Science, so they joined the Kingdom of Science because of Luna, and Katsuki and Chrome. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 12 people revived. Yeah, that's only 12 people revived. And then obviously we've got 13, 14. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. 13, 14, Hyoga and Tsukasa. Now, a lot of people were noticing, like, why weren't Ginryu and Matsukazu revived at this point? Now, I personally have a feeling why that wasn't done, and it's going back to what Ginryu is like, and he would probably be saying some stuff that are like not PC or PG around Suika if she was the one to revive him. Yeah. So maybe that's why they didn't revive them in this chapter. But other than that, I can't think of an explanation why they weren't shown. But anyway, moving on, Kosuke goes on to say, "Oh ho ho, wouldn't you know, every time I get revived, my cranky bones feel better than ever. If you petrify me every now and again, this old fossil might live to see the adventure. Just like how little Suika is older. Before I know it, you youngsters will be old-timers like me." Now that may seem like a jokey comment, but based on the end of this chapter, that's going to be dangerous for anyone. So anyway, Chrome now actually says, "That's right, I just had a bad thought. To keep Kosuke alive a little longer, we could have actually left him petrified, because once you're dead for real, it's not like the Medusa could bring you back." Keep that thought of Chrome's in mind for a little while, as we see Tsukasa actually being revived before Chrome just brushes it off and says, "We need you alive to keep our boat in tip top condition." And again, they need to go and fight the Perseus. Before Kosuke says, "Count on me. I'd better put in the work." And as Tsukasa is revived, I just love the fact that he's still got the little strands of the petrification stuck in his hair. Anyway, he goes on to say, "How is Yoga?" And Senku, his reaction in that moment is you can actually see it right here. Like, his reaction, I don't know what his reaction is. It's kind of like, "You want me to revive Hyoga? Really? After he tried to do all of that crap?" Or it's probably after, Really? You're asking how he is after all that, or more logically, Senku's thinking like, I don't know if this is actually gonna. I don't know if this is actually gonna work, and it's probably pointless to revive him, because he says it in a way of like, oh, him. It's like how Senku's probably not expecting this to work. That's kind of the interpretation I'm taking away from what Senku's reaction here. Like he's kind of not expecting this to happen because Hyoga got turned into Swiss cheese. Uh, one thing I want to say is that Shonen OG, who mentioned me in a couple of videos before on his channel, he did a live stream last night on the Dot Stone chapter, which I was there for and I was commenting on, and he said that him and his partner were saying like the one thing that they want to actually come out of this is like having some traumatic trauma of what they've been going through, like. And they brought up that they want Gen to actually be the one to have the traumatic trauma because he saw Taiju literally get blown up right in front of him, and Gen was like, "Come on, Taiju, you're pranking me, right? You're not really dead." And Gen had kind of an emotional breakdown at that point. So I feel like some of the characters need to have these emotional breakdowns of just like the gravity of the situation that they're actually getting themselves into. Even with the Medusa, it's still going to be a traumatic experience to actually go through. Like the Medusa doesn't take away the trauma of what actually happened. So even though the deaths are undone, they're still going to have those psychological PTSDs on them. That's not going to go away. The Medusa's not magically going to make that go away. But anyway, everyone gets excited about Hyoga getting revived, and Suika saying, I drawn up and waited for years for this moment. And Tsukasa saying like, can Hyoga really be revived? As we see again, now this is something I did not notice, so it's good to actually go back and look at these chapters. As Tsukasa saying, can Hyoga really be revived? Because Tsukasa was pretty damn sure, and in this chapter he was pretty damn sure that Hyoga was definitely dead. Like completely dead, gone and everything. We see Gen just silently thinking off to the side, just like, about something. As we see Hyoga, it does actually get revived. He is alive. His wounds are healed up, and Tsukasa looks absolutely shocked by this. Like, not shocked in a way of like, oh my god, it actually worked. More shocked like, oh no, oh shit, this shouldn't be happening. This really shouldn't be happening. Like, that look from Tsukasa is the look of like horrified by what they're actually doing. So even though the deaths are being undone, I'm glad there's actually consequences to this, because otherwise the ranting would be warranted. Like, really? We couldn't get Hyoga dying? But they're like, oh, this is bad. This is really, really bad, that what we're actually tampering with right now. But other people are not actually thinking about that. Chelsea's only thinking about that. Hyoga has got to say the perfect thing at this moment. But I love how Hyoga just keeps with his mentality of just covering up his face. Like, he just got some leaves that just covered him up. So I love that. Like, he's still keeping with that mentality. But yeah, Hyoga should have died. Like, I agree. I'm on that front. Don't think I'm not on that front. Like, I agree, Hyoga should have died. But Chelsea continues to go on and says, you've got the perfect thing to say in this moment, as Suika's saying, oh, you don't need to thank me or anything. And she's like, not that, the thing Hyoga always says. And he's like, you get Hyoga going like, really? Do I have to do it? Fine, you've done well, everyone, definitely. And they're like, and Chelsea's like, I freaking love you guys! As we see Hyoga and Tsukasa go and slay some animals to get more clothing for everyone. As we see immediately, like literally, not a few pages ago, Ryusui was pretty much his clothes were pretty much like gone and everything, and immediately. That night, Ryusui has all his old clothes back. Like, Suika must have learned like some incredible skills over those years when she was depetrified and surviving for herself. Because yeah, Ryusui literally has his old outfit back. Pretty much everyone has their old outfits back at this point. Now, is that a bit of a plot hole? Maybe, maybe not. That's leaving it up to decide. I just find that hilarious. But anyway, yeah, Ryusui explains what the plan is. Is that starting from tomorrow, they'll resume their journey to get their people revived in the US. Now, I assume they're actually going to revive Sino and his forces and kind of come to a compromise. Maybe break their weapons beforehand. That would be the smartest move, to take away all their weapons and tie them up and then revive them and then be like, okay, you guys are going to listen to us because we have everything now. You guys have nothing. So maybe that will happen, maybe not. Maybe they'll revive Sino, but nobody else, and maybe they'll be like, "Okay, Sino, now you have to listen to us. We've got all your allies here. We'll unpetrify them, but you've got to work for us first." So that will probably be the negotiation that they'll make, and Sino will have no choice but to agree with it. But anyway, he goes. Ryusui says that they're going to revive their old allies in the US, Japan and Treasure Island, and then continue on with their journey, because obviously they're going to Math City next. So I'm glad that they're actually going to be doing a little bit of backtracking, and maybe this backtracking will actually get them discussing about the Medusa and its capabilities now, because of what we find out in this chapter. But anyway, they decide that tonight they're going to feast to celebrate their victory over the Americanists. As we see, one of the funnier moments in the chapter where we see Luna just be like, "Honey," to Senku, "can you come and hug me?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're a bit too drunk there, so kindly step aside." And we see Suika and Kohaku laughing. You can tell it's Suika because obviously of the little strands of hair in her head. And we see Carlos and Mash just being there like, why can't Luna be crying, be all over us? But anyway, we get some interesting insight into here. Like, we see Chrome commenting on, despite the fact that Senku was revived, his cracks had not healed up, and Senku just assumes that it's because of the erosion, in kind of the same way that excuse me, in kind of the same way that Soyuz's father had so much erosion on his face that even if he was to be revived, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter in the slightest. And Gen goes on to say, "Dear Senku, I believe that dear Tsukasa took a stroll to the water wheel hut all alone." And this is where we get Senku thinking like, maybe I should talk to Tsukasa about this, as we see the moon in the background of Senku just kind of like ominously looking down on him. And I love like just the imagery of the moon just staring down on him, like the Y-Man is always watching them. So as Gen decides to give a magic show to celebrate them being revived after 7 years, we cut over to the water wheel hut in South America, as we see Chrome not being able to handle his alcohol. He's like, "I'm going for a piss," and this is where we see him find Tsukasa and Senku actually talking about what's been going on. And Tsukasa says he lost consciousness. Hyoga himself had no way to realise that back then he was really dead. And this is when Chrome is like absolutely shocked by this, like, holy shit, what I said earlier has actually happened. Tsukasa goes on to say that enough time passed to be sure that his eyes didn't deceive him. So yeah, Tsukasa pretty much confirming that Hyoga was shot dead and was dead for all that time. Senku goes on to say, "Hey, your testimony is good as gold, Tsukasa," as we see him giving like sort of like a somber looking face, which actually honestly implies to me that Senku didn't intend for all this to happen. He didn't intend to have all this power. Now, a lot of people disagree with me, like Senku wouldn't care, but that face is the face of someone that cares about things. So people, you want to say Senku doesn't care? Just look at that face, because he is obviously caring about this. Like, yeah, this shouldn't be happening. As he goes on to say, "Actually, ever since you snapped my neck and I put you into a cold sleep, I've been tossing around a hypothesis. Now we've got solid proof from this unplanetary death-defying experiment. The petrification can even nullify death. Now, this is the big controversy of the chapter, because this is going to either, this is going to split the fandom, and people are going to either love it or hate it. Now, personally, I'm kind of sort of in the middle. Like, I kind of wish this didn't happen, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, okay, let's see where this actually goes, because even though the petrification can nullify death, I doubt it will be able to nullify death if a machete came and just lopped off someone's head, or a sword came and just lopped off someone's head. And you tell me then, can the petrification nullify death after that point? But anyway, I'm glad that these moments of Senku, when Senku was killed, when Tsukasa snapped his neck, and when Tsukasa was put into a freezer, because that's pretty much confirming that they were dead at that point. They were officially dead. And this is where we get the big revelation of this chapter, that at this moment, we, the humans of Earth, all of us, are now immortal. Wyman's Dr. Stone is a scientific taboo not meant for humanity. Our own forbidden fruit, as we see Chrome absolutely horrified, and that's where the chapter ends. So the forbidden fruit are obviously a reference to the Adam and Eve story, which, like I said at the beginning of the series, which, like I said at the beginning of the chapter, I don't think Senku intended for it to go this far, which means so many possibilities of what direction the story could take right now. Now, I personally would like more discussions about this, like more disagreements about how we handle the Medusa from now on, because the Medusa, like people are saying, is turning into the Dragon Balls of the series. Now, what I love about this is that the actual revivals, they didn't happen for a long time. 10 chapters, 7 years in their time, so it wasn't like an instant, like, oh, well, magically healing this person. No, it took a while for them to come back. Now, where will this actually go? Now, personally, for me, I feel like they're only gonna use it under exceptional circumstances. Like, this was an exceptional circumstance. I really don't want them to use the Medusa to solve, like the Medusa and the Revival Fruit to solve all and be all problems. I kind of want them to get a little bit more creative, and I feel like they are going to get a little bit more creative, because they're going to be like, okay, we have a weapon now that can basically cheat death itself. This is they're actually saying like this is forbidden. This is something we should not be tampering with, even though Senku's been tampering with it with the Revival Fluid since the beginning of the series. But that's besides the point. This is something that is going against the natural order of things, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of disagreements about what this is. Not just that, but I feel like, because some people are saying like, well, there's not going to be any enemies out there to actually combat them now, so it's going to be smooth sailing. No, because we did have that time skip, so people could have revived during that time skip, and I want to see like an evil doctor and an evil politician basically like, okay, we've got the scientist here, that the scientist here who's the leader of this team, so if we kidnap him, maybe we can discover the secret, the secrets of how to get people out of this stone, and they might actually kidnap Senku, and there might be a race to rescue Senku from the villains, kind of what happened with Sino, how Sino was kidnapped, and now it'll be the Kingdom of Science people to actually go and rescue Senku, whilst he's actually trying to deal with the bad guys. That would be pretty interesting to see what happens on that front, and I would really want to see that. But one of the other members of Discord, Curly Fries, actually brought up an interesting theory about what's going to happen now. If I can actually bring up Discord, let me just bring it up. Dr. Stone. Yeah, here's about. Okay, so was it in the Discord? Yeah. Polyjones brought up the idea of like sometimes that the erosion might be so corrupt that even the Medusa can't revive them. So yeah, that was great. What makes this chapter, he goes on to say, what makes this chapter special is we finally have a series that seems likely to address the gravity of resurrection, though I guess this means Senku will be able to restore all of humanity. So we're trading one ethical debate for another. So yeah, so it's kind of like what is ethically right to do in this with this situation? Because what happens if you revive so many people? Pardon me. Let me find that from Curly Fries. Curly Fries. Sorry about this, guys. But yeah, basically, Curly Fries mentioned that there might be a world war for the Medusa if so many people are revived, and it's like, oh, they've got this weapon that can revive everyone and basically make us immortal. We're going to want that, and there's going to be like a world war, and that's probably what the Y-Man wanted. He wanted humanity to destroy themselves, and the petrification was the catalyst. So like, he took down a bunch of petrification weapons and say, fight over these and destroy yourselves. But I'm going to tell you it's stone first, just for lols. Now again, big split down the fandom on this decision, whether people love it or hate it. Like I said, I'm kind of in the middle, because I can see the positives from both sides, and I'm kind of sort of in the middle. Like, I wish it went in a different direction. Now I've actually read the chapter a few times, and I feel like it should have gone in a different direction. Like, there should have been a cap limit that once someone was dead, like shot completely dead, even before petrification, they cannot be revived. That should have been something that should have been a limitation on a Medusa, and I feel like they've a little bit shot themselves in the foot here, because it takes away a little bit of the tension of the series. Like, if they could just use the Medusa to revive their foreign allies, then it's not really going to be a tension. Now, is this going to affect my enjoyment of the series? Absolutely not, because it's just one thing in just a sea of glory that is Doctor Stone. So this is not going to affect my enjoyment of the series, but I can see why it would affect other people's enjoyment of the series. And we were debating on the Control Chaos with David, because this is something he did not want to happen. And honestly, I cannot wait to see what his video is like when if it comes out after I've uploaded mine. So yeah, go and support Control Chaos to see what the quite possibly it might be the longest Doctor Stone video they've ever done, because they'll probably be going back and forth on this topic all that time. But for me personally, I'm kind of in the middle. Hyoga should have died, and there should have been a limitation on what the Medusa is capable of. But at the same time, Doctor Stone isn't really a series that focuses mostly on the deaths of characters, and yeah, that's kind of a negative on its part. Like, characters should be dying if they're delving into realms of exploring the idea of basically tampering with the laws of nature like this. There really should be more gravity to the situation of that film. But at the same time, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm quite interested to see where this direction goes. Whether there'll be villains who Senku accidentally revives that want to steal the sequence of the petrification and the Medusa, or the villains that are already revived that want to kidnap Senku to get all his secrets. We never know, and there might be some disagreements amongst the ranks themselves, leading to a civil war. That might actually be something that might actually happen. Like, some people will be in disagreement about what direction they should use the Medusa, like where they should actually take it, how long they should actually take it, and also as well, they have to be careful, because that message from Y-Man is always on repeats, like the whole petrify the earth message, like the radius and how many times, because that's always in the radio waves, and that could easily be picked up. So yeah, they're gonna have to be extremely careful on that front. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on the chapter. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this will be Lasher Luke signing off. Later, guys.